All right, so you guys sent in this pretty wild article this week from the New York Times about Medellin, Colombia. And, obviously it's a place that attracts so many visitors.
Absolutely.
But this story is shining light on something pretty disturbing, a really worrying trend that seems to be connected to dating apps.
Right.
And so in this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack this news, explore the real risks that are being reported, and try to figure out why this should be on all of our radars, especially if you're a traveler.
Yeah, especially for folks who use online dating platforms, too.
Yeah, for sure.
It's something that's becoming increasingly common, and it's really important to be aware of.
Okay, so the article kicks off with this guy named Steven Valdez, who's a travel blogger.
Right.
He's in Medellin. He connects with someone on Tinder. They meet up for a date.
Okay.
And she suggests that he try this local soup called ajiaco.
Yeah, yako.
So he has a couple spoonfuls, and then
Oh.
that's it. His memory just goes blank.
Wow. So it's like instant incapacitation. Like he just blacks out completely.
Gone.
And they actually say at the hospital that he had ingested a combination of sedatives.
Oh, wow.
And one of them was scopolamine.
Yeah, this scopolamine thing is it's scary.
It's scary stuff.
They describe it in the article as odorless, tasteless memory blocking.
Right.
And even the U.S. Embassy is warning people about this. They say it's being used to incapacitate and rob unwary victims.
Yeah, I mean, just the idea that something can just completely erase your awareness like that is really unsettling.
It's really freaky.
And they even say it can make people unusually open to suggestion.
Really?
Yeah, so like if you think about the bigger picture here, right?
Yeah.
The embassy isn't just talking about like petty theft.
Right.
They're talking about like, someone under the influence of this could be manipulated into giving up their possessions, passwords, bank information.
Oh, my God.
Sensitive information without any memory of it happening.
That's so scary.
A really scary thought.
So the article also mentions another drug called clonazepam.
All right, clonazepam.
And they say that it's showing up sometimes mixed with scopolamine or alcohol.
Right. Well, we're going to see that tragically in a case a little later.
Yeah.
Clonazepam is actually a benzodiazepine.
Okay.
Which is a class of tranquilizers.
So it's like super strong stuff.
Yeah, it's very powerful stuff.
So this is clearly a serious situation.
Absolutely.
The U.S. Embassy actually issued a security alert.
Yeah.
Specifically focused on Medellin.
That's right.
Because of this rise in violent crime targeting visitors.
Using dating apps.
Yeah.
It's not just a couple of isolated incidents.
Definitely not.
It seems to be a pattern.
That's pretty widespread.
And it's interesting to see what the Colombian officials are saying about this, too.
Yeah. What do they say?
So they do acknowledge there's a problem.
Okay.
And there's this guy, Carlos Kai, who monitors tourism for the city.
Okay.
And he points to Medellin's reputation for its sex industry.
Right.
And the perception that it's a place for cheap, intense partying.
Yeah. A lot of people go there for that.
Exactly. And he suggests that criminals are exploiting that image.
Oh, so they're like preying on that.
They're definitely taking advantage of it, yeah.
So, it's easy to think, okay, so this is just a problem for people who are going there for sex tourism.
Right.
But the article is really clear that it's not.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Because Medellin has become like a hub for digital nomads since the pandemic.
Huge for digital nomads.
Like tons of people going there.
People who work remotely and, want to live in different locations.
Right. And it's so cheap.
Affordable. Yeah.
And it's a cool place to be.
Beautiful place.
And so it's really easy to see why these folks would also use apps like Tinder to meet people.
Sure, absolutely.
And the article actually interviewed investigators and lawyers who said that these digital nomads are also being targeted.
Oh, wow. So it's not just people looking for, a specific type of experience.
It's everybody.
It's anyone who's using these platforms.
That's so scary.
It really is.
You know what I thought was really interesting, too, is that the Times reached out to Tinder for a comment.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't respond.
No response.
Which is pretty telling.
That's never a good sign.
No, it makes you wonder about the responsibility of these platforms.
Yeah, I mean, when their services are implicated in such serious criminal activity, you'd think they'd have something to say.
You would think.
But their silence is definitely concerning.
Yeah, it doesn't inspire confidence.
Not at all.
So trying to understand the scale of this problem is really hard.
It's tough to get a handle on.
Because the article says the exact number of these sedative-related robberies isn't known.
Right.
Because victims are often too embarrassed to report them.
That's understandable. I mean...
Or maybe they don't want to admit that they were on a date or that they met this person through a dating app.
Right. There's a lot of shame and stigma associated with it.
For sure.
And it makes it harder to get an accurate picture of how widespread this really is.
Right. But there is this forensic criminologist named Jorge Wilson Velez,
Right. Jorge Wilson Villas.
and he estimates that there could be potentially hundreds of victims in the past year alone.
Wow. Hundreds.
That's a lot.
That is a huge number. Even if it's just an estimate, it suggests a very serious problem.
For sure.
So it's not just a few isolated incidents.
No, definitely not.
This is something that's happening on a larger scale.
And according to this Velez guy,
Yeah.
he says that the motivations behind these attacks aren't just about random violence.
Oh, really? So there's something else going on.
Yeah, he says that perpetrators often view these robberies as attacks on tourists.
Like they're entitled to it.
Yeah, they see these tourists as wealthy
Right.
and as being in Colombia to exploit local women.
So they're justifying it in their minds.
Yeah, and he says the goal is usually robbery, not necessarily murder.
So they're not trying to kill people?
No, he says it's about giving the guys something to sleep.
That's a disturbing way to put it.
It is, but it's also kind of interesting because it shows that there's this weird rationale behind it.
Yeah, it's not just random senseless violence. There's like a twisted logic to it, almost like a sense of entitlement.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the whole context of Medellin.
Right.
You know, this city has worked so hard to transform itself after the whole Pablo Escobar era.
They've done a lot to improve their image.
Yeah, they've got museums, cafes, a modern metro system.
And they've seen a significant drop in homicide rates.
Huge drop.
So they've made a lot of progress.
But these crimes against tourists really threaten to undermine all of that.
Absolutely. It's a huge setback for them.
Yeah, and it tarnishes this new image that they've been working so hard to create.
It makes people think twice about visiting.
For sure.
And it's interesting because the article also presents a counter-narrative
Oh, really? From who?
from officials and lawyers
Right.
who suggest that some tourists' behavior actually contributes to the problem.
Oh, wow. What do you mean?
So they're saying that some tourists treat Medellin as like a lurid playground
Okay.
where the normal rules don't apply.
Like a anything goes kind of place.
Yeah, and that kind of attitude can make them more vulnerable.
Yeah, because if you're not paying attention
Exactly.
and you're not being respectful of local norms,
Right.
then you're more likely to become a target.
You're an easier target.
The article quotes this American lawyer in Medellin, Alan Gongora,
Okay.
and he says, there's this weird mystique. You come to Medellin, and the normal rules don't apply like anything is possible.
Wow, that's a dangerous mindset.
It is. It's like they're setting themselves up for trouble.
They're not taking the necessary precautions.
Exactly.
And it really speaks to this broader issue of responsible travel and cultural sensitivity.
Right.
It's not just about having fun.
Right.
It's about being respectful of the place you're visiting.
And being aware of your surroundings.
Exactly.
So then the article get into some really disturbing individual accounts.
Okay, like what?
So there's this 42-year-old man from New York.
Okay.
They call him RJ.
All right.
And he was drugged with a rum and coke
Oh, wow.
by a Tinder date.
So it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, it's not just about the soup.
Right.
And he lost a ton of valuables, electronics, jewelry, cash.
Oh, man, that's awful.
But here's the interesting thing. His passport was left behind.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it seems like that's a deliberate tactic.
Like to encourage victims to leave the country quietly.
Yeah, without reporting the crime or pressing charges.
That's pretty smart, actually, from the criminal's perspective.
It is. It's messed up, but it's smart.
It is. It's organized crime.
Yeah.
They're thinking about how to get away with it.
And then there's this story of a German scientist.
Okay.
They call him Dr. Travel.
Dr. Travel.
And he was drugged after meeting someone for a meal.
Oh, wow.
And he wakes up and his bank accounts are totally drained.
Oh, no.
His cryptocurrency holdings transfer. He lost over $16,000.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
So this isn't just about stealing physical items. They're accessing digital accounts.
Yeah, it shows a whole other level of sophistication.
They're tech savvy.
Yeah.
They know how to move money around electronically.
That's-
It's a whole different level of crime.
And then there's the really tragic case of Paul Nguyen.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about him.
He was the 27-year-old from California
Right.
who met someone on Tinder.
Mm-hmm.
And he was fatally drugged
Oh, that's right.
with clonazepam combined with alcohol.
Yeah, that combination can be deadly,
It is.
especially if you don't know what you're taking.
Right. And his date and accomplices were actually arrested.
Oh, wow, they were caught.
Yeah, thanks to a photo that he'd shared before he disappeared.
Oh, wow. So they were able to track them down.
Yeah,
It's good to hear.
it is. But it's still so sad.
It's a tragedy.
It really shows the potential life or death consequences of these encounters.
Absolutely. And it shows that these criminals aren't just playing around.
They're serious.
They're willing to use lethal force.
Yeah, so on the topic of law enforcement, the Medellin authorities say that stopping these attacks is a top priority.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
It is, but they've also mentioned some recent arrests.
Right.
But as Paul Nguyen's mother, Kimberly Dow, pointed out, arrests seem to be the exception rather than the rule.
Oh, really? So it's not happening as often as it should?
Yeah, she actually felt like she had to hire a private investigator
Wow.
to push the police to act on her son's case.
That's really concerning.
It is. It makes you wonder about the effectiveness of the law enforcement response.
Yeah, are they really doing everything they can to stop this?
And there's this Facebook group called Colombia Scopolamine Victims and Alerts.
Okay.
And it had thousands of members.
Wow.
Which really speaks to the expat community's anxieties.
Like they're scared.
Yeah, they're worried, and they feel like they need to create their own support system.
Because they don't trust the authorities to protect them.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
It's a bad situation.
So I think it's helpful to understand a bit more about scopolamine itself.
Yeah. What is this stuff?
So the article mentions that it has legitimate medical uses
Okay, like what?
for things like motion sickness and nausea.
Oh.
But it also gained popularity around 3 decades ago as a recreational drug.
As a drug?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And sadly, as a tool for crime.
Oh, wow.
This is according to Guillermo Castaño from Colombia's Science Ministry.
Okay, so it's been around for a while.
Yeah. It's not a new thing.
But it seems like it's become more prevalent in recent years.
Yeah, and Dr. Castaño says that criminals in Colombia specifically started targeting tourists with scopolamine about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. So they've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, and they often mix it with benzodiazepines like clonazepam.
Right, to make the victims even more incapacitated.
Exactly.
It's a potent combination.
It is.
And it makes the effects much stronger and harder to counteract.
So it's not just about Medellin.
Right.
The article mentions that scopolamine-related incidents have been reported in other locations, too.
Oh, really? Like where?
London, Bangkok.
Wow. So it's a global problem.
It is. It's not unique to Colombia.
But it seems like Medellin is a hotspot right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe because of its reputation as a party city?
Yeah, maybe. And also the U.S. Embassy has issued a specific warning about Medellin.
Right. So that's definitely put a spotlight on the issue.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's important to be aware of the risks no matter where you're traveling.
Yeah, so to recap what we've learned, there's this concerning trend of tourists in Medellin, particularly those using dating apps, being targeted with these powerful sedatives.
Scopolamine and clonazepam?
Yeah, for the purpose of robbery.
All right.
And the perpetrators seem to be motivated by this perception of tourists as wealthy and exploitative.
Yeah, they see it as a way to get back at them.
And while authorities say they're addressing the issue, arrests are infrequent, and victims often face challenges in seeking justice.
It's a complicated situation.
It is. It's multifaceted.
Yeah, and it raises questions about the responsibility of dating apps.
For sure.
And the role of tourism in these kinds of crimes.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
And it's important to remember that the U.S. Embassy has issued a direct warning about using dating apps in Colombia.
And about visiting nightclubs and bars.
Yeah, those are high-risk areas.
So be careful out there.
Be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, so I want to leave you guys with something to think about.
Okay.
Given our natural desire to connect with people when we travel and to have new experiences, and now understanding these potential dangers, how does this information change how you think about your personal safety?
Yeah, that's a good question.
How do you strike that balance between being open to new interactions and being cautious?
Right. Especially when you're using online platforms in unfamiliar environments.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is. It's a balancing act.
But it's something that we all need to consider.
Absolutely. Stay safe out there, folks.
Stay safe
Yeah.
and be smart.
Be smart.